Okay, great. If you do have any details, then we can share some email contacts at the end. So now I guess this is the reason why we're all there. So that was really useful to have some background, awareness as to what's going on locally and be aware of sort of national changes. It's great to hand the baton to Lisa. Lisa's program manager and really been sort of very much responsible for the whole virtual group cancer care review project. So I'll hand directly on to Lisa.
Thanks, Deepak. Morning, everyone. I'm Lisa. I'm Programme Manager with the East England Cancer Alliance, predominantly in the south, but for this project, I'm doing it across the whole of the region. Next slide, please, Tom. So I thought I'd start with the what. So what are group consultations? In really basic terms, it's a shared medical appointment with a group of patients who've had similar healthcare experiences and diagnoses. They're not just simply patient support groups, not just group therapy, not just education. They are consultations in their own right. They can incorporate care planning, results sharing, etc., such as they do use this currently in diabetes. But as part of our project, we really have co-designed a toolkit which focuses on the holistic needs assessments of that group of patients rather than going down a results sharing route. They can improve patient clinical outcomes, and they do empower patients, which is a theme that's come through today very loudly, to manage their long-term condition. They aren't new, they've been around for a while. Example here is from 1905 for TB patients, and with such positive outcomes, they summarised that they had a common bond in a common disease. They're also widely used in healthcare systems across the world, such as America and Australia, who've been doing group consultations for decades. Next slide, please, Tom. Now, this is the why for me. So Lee described earlier what it was like to be a patient being given that diagnosis and the consequences associated with that. My background is a general manager in an acute trust, so throughout my operational work life, I've really focused on diagnosis and treatment rather than the whole person, because that was the nature of my role. So if you haven't been in that position, it's really difficult to envisage what that might feel like. This is a mind map from a patient who has had a diagnosis of cancer and who sits on our project group. She pulled this together almost immediately after getting the diagnosis, and it still gives me goosebumps looking at it, having to deal with all that as well as having treatment for your cancer. So this is the why we're doing this project. So next slide, please, Tom. So that's about the how. I will describe a bit later about our project team and the work we've done and how we're going to support the mobilisation of this model. But this is an example of the stuff we pulled together as part of a toolkit co-designed with patients, GPs such as Liz, nurse specialists from such as Emma, and also nurse specialists from ESNEFT, patient groups, all sorts of people have been involved in this, and it really has evolved from what we originally envisaged as being a little bit like the diabetes model to something much more personalised and geared to what the patient wants to talk about. Next slide, please, Tom. So this is just another part of our toolkit where we've learned from other case studies, support for the PCNs and practices, what it might look like. But having said this, this toolkit is here, but we will be here to, as a Cancer Alliance, to support the pilot PCNs as they move through the development of the model. Next slide, please, Tom. Can you click on, please, Tom? So how did we get here today? Well, it all started from the original lockdown, which seems a very long time ago now, in March 20. So we wanted to learn and capture innovations that had been rapidly deployed during the lockdown. Having had a transformation background, we know with the NHS, innovations, transformation can take years to bring in, yet with the pandemic, we were able to bring things in much quicker. So we set up a digital working group to look at these innovations and scope up what we could do, what we could support for our cancer patients. At the time, there weren't a lot of case studies available, but we did find one in Lancaster in the Northwest region, where a practice nurse had implemented group consultations for long-term conditions, including cancer. She described clear benefits such as peer support and group learning, and significant reduction in holistic needs assessment scores. Can you click on, please, Tom? So we pulled together a business case which was supported by both East of England Cancer Alliance boards, so that there is money to support this project and roll out. And our plan is to have pilot sites across the Essex, Chelmsford PCNs and Suffolk PCNs. Next slide, please, Tom. Click on, please. So this gives a bit more detail about the benefits of the project. Some of them I've already discussed. So why go virtual? I think the key, everybody's aware of the pandemic and the ongoing impact of that. So virtual obviously is a safer option for patients and staff alike. It overcomes logistic issues such as travelling, parking, lack of space to have a group consultation to start with. It can be flexible, people can join remotely from their homes, etc. And it does release clinical time. There is productivity gain within this. But we want to make it clear that this is an additional patient choice for their cancer care review. It might not be the right choice for that particular patient. So it's there to be offered, and we want to share the benefits of this project today with you all, so to really engage with you to start offering this to our patients as we mobilise the project. And again, there's that word there is empowerment. It does build confidence in patients to play an active role in their care. Next slide, please, Tom. Can you just click through? So what's the proof of concept? How do we know it works? There's lots of theory here. So what's the feedback? So in efficiency and access, practice nurse reported that she spent at least 30 minutes on a one-to-one basis with every patient for the cancer care review. But with the group model, she was able to see 8 to 10 people in 60 to 90 minutes, giving an efficiency gain of approximately 70%. So what about the patients? What did they think of it? There's an example here where a chap was able to join the group consultation in his van, and he was actually having chemotherapy at the time, and was able to link in with other patients who had already gone through that route. The patients reported a sense of belonging and made friends and informal support groups. There's a lot of examples where patients have continued to get together, WhatsApp groups, etc., and they're reporting that that's really supporting them as they go through living with and beyond cancer. But perhaps surprisingly, some of the feedback has also included there were smiles, laughs and fun, which you don't automatically think will happen at a group consultation for a cancer care review. But that was across numerous case studies. And also the words that we often hear with innovation and technology particularly is about that digital exclusion. So in the case samples we looked at, patients were able and willing to use technology, regardless of their age, general and social economical status. And this is something we want to test as part of this project pilot. Next slide, please, Tom. So that's the background. That's the what, why, how. So where are we now? So we did put a pause on during the pandemic. We're now up and running. We're very close, I believe, to mobilising across the Chelmsford PCNs, thanks to the support of the practice managers and Liz. We're almost getting to that point. We have money to support this project, and we are planning to provide more training sessions and building virtual options, etc., for all staff that are involved in this project. We have co-designed a toolkit with patient reps on our group, which we'll be sharing with the PCNs as we roll out, and we'll be developing and involving them as we move through. Next point, please. And after 6 months, we will be doing a formal evaluation, which Lee is going to discuss with you next. Any questions? Next slide, please, Tom.
It's great. Thank you very much, Lisa, for that really fantastic overview. Are there any questions at all? Shall we go straight into the evaluation? Yeah.